I was a member of the Youth Symphony when I was in the ninth grade, and the year was about 1953. And what's is interesting about the Youth Symphony then was that it was conducted by a former member of the Vienna Symphony. The Youth Symphony then was you pay no fee. It was absolutely free. And because of that, there'd be one rehearsal, there'd be about 35 students, and the next time there'd be 60. 4 or 5 months before the concert, you'll have about 25 to 35. And attendance really was not mandatory at that time. I played in all the rehearsals, but never played the concert. And the reason for that is that I had to borrow my father's coat, or suit. It was black, and black was not in for young people. It was only used for the funerals. And so I was ashamed to wear the black suit. So I never played a concert. I went to all, it was the opposite, where you normally don't play all of the rehearsals, but you want to play the concert. I played all the rehearsal, but was not able to play the concert because of my attire. Music can change life. It changed mine. It's most interesting because I'm Japanese, so especially when I grew up, it was during the Second World War. And my father was a carpenter. And he was able to work because of the military projects. And he made enough to provide for a family of 9. And so I thought it was a very honorable profession because I respected what my father was doing. He worked on some of the bases, and they were bringing in Japanese prisoners. And he's Japanese, but he's Japanese from Hawaii. So knowing that they had a hard time eating some of the American food, he asked my mother to make extra, rice balls, musubi, and extra spam, which he always had, and chicken, etc. And then he would give his lunch to the prisoners. And he would come home hungry, and my mother had to cook again. Seeing that, I put the relationship with his work and his benevolent personality about sharing his food with at that time the Japanese prisoners that were brought to their military base. So I thought perhaps I'll be a carpenter, and I thought it was an honorable profession. But when I went to high school, I was going to be a potential dropout because I just didn't go to school. And if it wasn't for music and the band director at that time at McKinley High School, I think I would have ended up being a carpenter because I would not have been able to go to college. I've seen a whole different world being a musician because I've been pretty much all over I've been to China, I've been to Japan, I've been giving master classes, I've been on the mainland, I've been to as far as North Dakota, and Florida, New York, and the West Coast, and Vancouver, Canada, doing clinics, band clinics or orchestra clinics, or doing master classes in clarinet performance. They're really bright. All of the students that are in the Youth Symphony, they're pretty much the top students, and but they come with an idea that they can play their instruments, and they just want to be a part of this large organization. We start to get more into the nitty-gritty of the music, and then when they get to a certain point, there's always a discussion on what it means emotionally within the music. So they have to go beyond themselves. And for many of them, it's a new experience because the demand is not just technical. It's best I can give you is that when they come into, they expect something concrete. But then they realize they're working on something that's very intangible. They cannot, it's not concrete. They cannot put their finger on talking about the emotion of the music. But it's interesting. It's there, and once they experience that change, I always tell them that there's something chemically within inside of you that has changed also. And I think you can see it. I always look at the eyes. You can see it in their eyes that something transferred. When I have the opportunity to see that change, to me, I think it makes the whole program more than worth being part of for me as well as the students. It's interesting because it becomes reciprocal. They excite me more than I excite them. I guess I have to use the word discipline because if you play and practice within yourself, there's an allowance that you can offer yourself. By that I mean you can not be as critical to yourself as you play, because as you play and you can tell yourself that's enough, and there's no one else demanding anything more. And so when they get into a large organization, it's even more important that they practice, because they have to be together. To make 101 sound like one, it's extremely difficult because everyone has to be on the same page at the same time. And by that I mean that everyone, when I give a downbeat, everyone has to be together, all together at one time. And as the rhythm and as the counterpoint, as the melody changes, they still have to be on together. When you do that, the overall orchestra starts to change, because at that point in time, no one takes, everyone just gives. And that's what's so wonderful. And when I stop, it's because someone pulled away. Two things. And I don't know which one is more important, but it's music and the students. It's simply said, but see, I can be involved in music, but if I don't have the students, I have no way of making music. And the students can be involved with music, but they need a invigorator, which is a conductor, to make them make music. You have to go beyond yourself. If you're in music, your ego cannot be the driving force. The music has to be the driving force. So you have to get up to that music. And when you do that, you get beyond yourself. You become secondary to music. And when you do that, you can then reflect back who you are. When you do that, you tend to want to go one step beyond the beyond. Because when you do that, you get into an area that often is not discussed. And it's most interesting because when you talk to the students, they cannot explain it, but they say they know it exists. So we use different metaphors, like, for instance, you can feel the wind. You don't see the wind, but you know it's there. Concrete things are easy to work with. When you start to do the intangible, like emotion, and then you have 101 student with 101 student different emotion, they have to change. And this is an emphasis in terms of what I always try to mention, that you go beyond yourself. When you do that, everything is neutralized with everybody. I've been doing this for 53 years, and I'm still amazed. You can think that you're going to expect that something will come out like this, but it doesn't go like, I'm going to use my hand. It doesn't go this side. It goes this way. And this way is much more creative than this point in mind, because I've already supposedly solved where I want to go to, but they take it to a different place. I gave them the tools. I expressed the tools, but they took it to where they wanted to take it to. Sometimes this is too confining. I set the goal. They took it to a different goal. And to me, I think that's my excitement. music is not the only thing in our society, but it should be a major force in our society, because when they do get to the point where they're expressing themselves musically, they become more benevolent as people, they become more understanding, they become more aware of the needs of other people outside of themselves, because they're in an environment they have to share. They're in an environment that they cannot be a person that say I. It's we. It's a total, and it's. They laugh about this, but I said, being in an orchestra, you have to understand the concept. This is like democracy in action, but unfortunately, there's a dictator within this democracy, and then when you do the work by yourself, then this dictator no longer exists.